On August 21st, 1986, nothing exploded. No sirens were heard, no flames lit the sky, yet before sunrise, over 1,700 people were dead. They died in their sleep, in their homes, beside their families. The killer made no sound. It left no wounds, and it vanished before anyone could see it. This is the full story of Lake Nyos. Nature used the air itself as a weapon. Lake Nyos lies in northwestern Cameroon, nestled inside a volcanic crater formed thousands of years ago. To scientists, it was just another part of the Cameroon volcanic line, a long chain of dormant volcanoes. But to the local population, it was simply life. The lake provided water for their cattle, fish for their tables, and nourished the fertile land they farmed. Villages like Nyos, Cha, and Saboom grew around its shores. There were no ancient legends warning of danger, no history of eruptions, no reason at all to fear the calm blue water. But deep beneath the surface, something was happening. Magma, far below the lake bed, was slowly releasing carbon dioxide. Year after year, decade after decade, this gas dissolved into the cold, deep waters, trapped by the immense pressure. The beautiful lake was silently becoming a loaded gun. To understand what happened next, you have to think about a bottle of soda. When it's sealed, you can't see the gas inside because it's dissolved under pressure. But when you open it, the pressure is released, and all that gas rushes out in a fizz of bubbles. Lake Nyos was like a gigantic, natural soda bottle. It was incredibly deep, over 200 meters, and the water at the bottom was cold and still. These conditions created a perfect trap. The water layers didn't mix, so the heavy, gas-rich water stayed at the bottom while the lighter, fresh water sat on top, acting like a cap. By 1986, scientists later estimated that over 1 billion cubic meters of carbon dioxide were stored in the lake. That's enough gas to fill a fleet of super. And nobody knew. There were no sensors, no monitoring systems, and no emergency plans. The danger was completely invisible and utterly silent. As night fell on August 21st, the villages around the lake settled in. People were eating dinner, tending to their animals, and putting their children to bed. It was a perfectly ordinary evening. Then, sometime around 9:30 p.m., something triggered the lake. We still don't know the exact cause. It could have been a small landslide on the crater wall, a minor earthquake from deep within the earth, or even a sudden downpour of cold rain that disturbed the delicate balance of the water layers. Whatever it was the final nudge. The deep, gas-saturated water suddenly surged upwards. As it rose, the pressure dropped dramatically. And just like opening that bottle of soda, the lake erupted. It wasn't a volcanic eruption of lava and ash. It was a limnic eruption and explosion of gas. A massive column of water and gas shot hundreds of feet into the air. Survivors who were far enough away later described a loud, muffled roar, like distant thunder. They saw a strange, tall, white cloud rising from the lake and smelled something like rotten eggs or gunpowder. But this wasn't smoke. It was a colossal cloud of pure, suffocating carbon dioxide. And because carbon dioxide is about 1.5 times heavier than air, it didn't rise into the atmosphere. Instead, the invisible cloud spilled over the lake's rim and poured down the surrounding valleys like a phantom river, moving at highway speeds. It hugged the ground, displacing all the oxygen in its path. It flowed into homes through open doors and windows, silently filling every room from the floor up. And it suffocated everything in its path. There was no struggle. Carbon dioxide doesn't choke you in the way smoke does. It simply replaces the oxygen your brain needs to function. Within seconds, it causes dizziness and confusion. Within a minute or two, unconsciousness. Then, death. Most of the victims never even woke up. When rescuers arrived, the scenes they found were surreal and horrifying. Entire families were discovered exactly as they had been when the gas cloud hit some in their beds. Others sitting at the dinner table, mothers still holding their children. Animals died where they stood. Herds of cattle lay lifeless in the fields. Insomniarias. Every single living, breathing creature below a certain altitude was gone. The few who survived were almost always on higher ground, in an elevated house, or had woken up just in time, felt the strange sensation, and instinctively ran uphill out of the invisible gas. In the face of this silent killer, survival had nothing to do with strength or speed. It was simply a matter of elevation. At sunrise, an eerie silence filled the valleys. There were no birds chirping, no insects buzzing, no sounds of life at all. The first rescue teams to enter the area had no idea what they were walking into. They saw the peaceful, untouched landscape and the bodies, but couldn't understand what had happened. Some of the rescuers collapsed instantly as they entered the low-lying zones, where pockets of gas remained. Only then did authorities realize the very air was the weapon. In the end, over 1,700 people and more than 3,500 livestock perished. The villages were ghost towns, the landscape a quiet, green tomb. Death was everywhere, yet there was not a single building destroyed. The world's top scientists flew in, and what they discovered was a scientific nightmare. This was a limnic eruption, a phenomenon so rare it was almost mythical. Only one other event like it had ever been documented, at nearby Lake Nyos, just 2 years earlier, which had killed 37 people. But Nyos was on a scale nobody thought possible. The disaster literally rewrote geology and public safety textbooks. It was horrifying proof that a lake could transform into a natural chemical weapon. Several factors combined to make the Lake Nyos event so uniquely lethal. Carbon dioxide is invisible and has no odor, so there was no warning. It knocks people unconscious before they can even process that they're in danger, eliminating any chance of panic or escape. The region's hilly terrain acted like a funnel, channeling the dense gas into the populated valleys and trapping it there for hours. The victims never knew what hit them. They simply went to sleep and stopped breathing. For the survivors, the trauma was unimaginable. They returned to find their villages empty, their families gone. Mass graves were dug to bury the dead. Many lost everyone they had ever known in a single night. The psychological scars were deep, and some refused to ever return to the place that had become synonymous with fear and mourning. Entire communities would erase from the map, not by fire or flood, but by a silent breath from the lake. Scientists knew this could happen again. Lake Nyos was already recharging itself with more carbon dioxide from below. So they acted in a groundbreaking engineering effort. An international team installed large pipes that run from the surface deep into the gas-rich bottom layers of the lake. These pipes work like giant straws. Once started, they create a self-sustaining fountain that continuously and safely vents the carbon dioxide from the depths, releasing it into the atmosphere in small, harmless amounts. Today, these degassing pipes are still working, constantly bleeding the pressure from the lake, thanks to the lessons learned at Lake Nyos. Other potentially dangerous lakes around the world, like Lake Kivu, on the border of Rwanda and the Congo, are now being monitored and managed to prevent a similar catastrophe. The Lake Nyos disaster teaches us a terrifying but vital lesson. Nature doesn't always warn us with a roar. Sometimes the deadliest threats are the ones that build up silently, invisibly, over generations. They wait, they build pressure, and they strike without a sound. It's a chilling reminder that the most dangerous disasters aren't always the loudest ones. They are the ones that arrive on the quietest of nights. Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please consider liking and subscribing for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world.